Welcome to Inside Monster Jam, powered by Lucas Oil, the official Monster Jam podcast. I'm Scott Jordan. My guest this week went all the way to the top of the mountain in 2016 when he won the World Finals Racing Championship. It is my pleasure to go to the Great Clips Hotline to North Carolina to welcome in my former broadcast partner, Morgan Kane. Morgan, welcome to Inside Monster Jam. So good to have you here.
Thanks, Scott. We appreciate you reaching out. I think it's really exciting anytime you get a chance to get involved back in the brand and just talk about things in the past and then also hit on a couple things in the future. So
absolutely, man. I have you to owe a lot of credit to my career here because you and Bryce embraced me back in 2019 on our NBC broadcast and really kind of helped usher me and get me ready to where we're at today, man. So I do owe a lot to you, and let's get right to it. Let's talk about your friendship with the Andersons growing up. I know your mom worked with Dennis Anderson when you were a kid, so that was sort of your introduction to Monster Jam. But let's go back and talk about little Morgan Kane growing up with the Andersons.
Yeah, that's it's a story that never goes away. I think you think about childhood and how you were raised, and it kind of builds you as a person. Like you said, mom worked for Dennis back in the early 90s, and it was a unique opportunity for me to be involved in the family. So, when you think about Gravedigger and you think about Monster Jam, it's something that it's a family legacy, so you always want to continue to help represent that, and represent your hometown is always a good thing as well. But growing up as a kid, it was, I remember running around the Gravedigger shop barefoot, diapers on, just playing. I mean, anything that we could get our hands on, whether it was a scooter, a dirt bike, four-wheeler, go-karts, whatever. We were always just trying to have fun, and Dennis was there always trying to, help push the limits. He would always tell us, hey, go over there and set this jump up with a piece of plywood and see if you can jump it. To have that relationship, it was a lot of fun.
Well, as you were around there as a kid, obviously as kids, we have big dreams in life, and some of those come to fruition, some don't. But was that your goal as a young man to end up in a Gravedigger truck and to drive these big Monster Jam machines?
Well, selfishly, it wasn't. I think that for me, my biggest dream was being a professional athlete. Soccer was my biggest passion, me and my dad. And, we were on the road probably 40 weekends a year just playing soccer. So whether that's traveling to Chicago for a game, whether that's going to Texas for a game, I say a game, you're in the top shape and top form of your career when you're a junior and, senior in high school trying to get recruited. So we were in a national league and we were traveling around all over the place. So that was really my main focus, was how can I become a professional athlete? I had no intention to drive a Monster Jam truck. So it was kind of unique how it played out.
Yeah, and life has a funny way of coming full circle and kind of playing pranks on you. Let's talk about your soccer career, because you go on to become a Division I soccer player, which I admire. I was a soccer player as well, but my biggest offer was to a Division III school, so I wasn't quite at your level. But you end up meeting Bryce Kenny indirectly in that story. So talk about that relationship and where that developed.
Yeah. First I want to address the Division I, Division II, Division III, NIA, like that type of stuff. If you play college ball, they're all good. It doesn't matter, what level you're at. Just Division I takes a little bit more of a dedication, specifically, around the classroom. You're on big road trips. But when you think about competition, less than 1% go and play college sports from a high school background. So it's really cool to be able to see that and tell that story. But yeah, when you think about the introduction to Bryce Kenny, it was something to where I'll never forget. Rolling up at Campbell University and going on my official visit, Bryce is the one that hosted me. Him and three of the other players. It was really cool. I knew immediately Bryce was my guy, specifically because you go up to the locker room, to the facility, and there's Honda Accords, there's Toyotas, and all of these. It's just when you roll up and a guy has a yellow Mustang with racing stripes, it's kind of funny that you're like, okay, he enjoys motorsports. So Bryce hosted me, took me out to classes and to a game, and it was really cool to get that full experience. But we actually never played together. So that was one of the things that Bryce and I still talk about to this day is, who was the better soccer player? And we always kind of joke about it, where I'm a forward, he's a goalkeeper. So I always told him, I said, you're lucky that we didn't train together, because I'd be burying him past you. And we joke about it now, but Bryce had a couple of turning points in his college career, and so did I, and I think that, fate really brought us back together for being able to be the best that we can be in life, and then also be a role model within Monster Jam.
That's crazy. That must have been a heck of a recruitment class at Campbell University to have you with Bryce there. You end up both in Monster Jam, and you end up stuck with me on television in 2019. We'll get to that in a little bit. Up next, we're going to talk about the biggest trade in Monster Jam history. Stick around. More with Morgan Kane on Inside Monster Jam is next. Welcome back to Inside Monster Jam, powered by Lucas Oil. This week, I'm joined by former driver and host Morgan Kane as we talk about his amazing career in Monster Jam. Morgan, let's before we talk about this trade, let's dive into Steve Sims, who I think is an underrated name in Monster Jam. He owns the team out of Virginia Beach, Monster Trucks Unlimited, and that's where you got your start, correct?
Yeah, that's correct. I mean, Steve has been somebody that's probably been the most influential person in my career, specifically because without Steve, I wouldn't have been able to get behind a truck. I think that back in 2010, I met Steve at a couple of shows. Jacksonville, Florida was one that I went with the Andersons, and we kind of hung out in the pits. Didn't know that he owned trucks and he lived in Virginia Beach. So that was really cool for me to say, hey, look, I was in Virginia Beach for 6 years. It was 4 days out of the week I'd go up there and train for soccer. So it was really cool to be able to make that connection. And it paid off in the future. I think that he had a couple of opportunities that were really unique. And I was in a crossroads with my career with soccer and college, and I didn't really know where I wanted to go. Was looking at armed forces and things like that. And then Steve said something to me during one of the summers, I think it was 2010, and said that he had an opening and he needed some help. Not only on the monster truck side, but also in his stone business, which was an added bonus for learning how to work with my hands.
Yeah, and that's how he got involved as well. He did some cabinets for Dennis Anderson in exchange for Gravedigger coming to his son's party. So Steve is a great guy, helped me a lot throughout my career as well. You get into Monster Jam, you end up driving Max D for Tom Meents, and then November of 2015, the biggest and I believe only trade in Monster Jam history goes down between Tom and Dennis. You get traded along with Cole Vennard for Jared and Colton Eichelberger. So you go from Team Max D to Team Gravedigger. How did it feel to be back home with the Andersons on the Gravedigger side?
Yeah, I mean, I think that when you talk about, first off, I'd like to take a step back just to understand like the Max D, you're a headliner truck at that point. And when you, for the viewers that are not aware of what a headliner truck is that's who's going to set the show. We want to do the best job that we can to be able to continue to raise the bar every show and every event. But when I was able to make that transition from Ironman to Max D, that was something that changed my career. I think Tom being able to get behind me as a driver and as a person was something that changed my career, because it allowed me to open up and express the way I want to drive. And that was something that was more on the style of the Andersons, just because that's who I grew up watching. So it was wide open throttle pops, big air, cross threads, that type of stuff. It was similar to the Max D style, but a little different. So Tom spent so much time with me in Paxton, Illinois. I mean, not on the track, because there was not very much testing going on at Monster Jam University at that point. So Tom and I, we would come back to Paxton in between weekends, and we'd watch video. We'd look at it, and he'd say, the first 30 seconds of your run was great. You needed to turn it up here. Maybe you try a couple little things differently in this run. So it was cool to be able to talk with him about building as a driver, because he's been in it forever and definitely a pioneer of the sport. So I remember we were starting the more Monster Jam tour. That was in the fall of 2014. We did our first event in Hampton, Virginia, and Dennis actually came up to watch because he was interested to see like the format, how it was going to go when you look at your speedsters and your ATVs and then the monster trucks. How does that play into the overall event? So when he was sitting in the stands, we're all ripping around the track and enjoying having a lot of fun. And he took me aside after one of the events and said, "Hey, man, like this is the coolest thing that I think I've seen since, we started freestyling." And he was like, "The only thing that I see that's wrong with this is that you're not in a Gravedigger." And that was something that I took to heart because I'm like, I'm representing my family here. It's not just Gravedigger. It's not just Dennis. It's not Ryan, Adam, Kristen, Weston. We grew up in Currituck, North Carolina, Kill Level Hills, North Carolina. That is, something that as a family you represent. And, you think about the blood on the side of Gravedigger. You think of that as your blood. So it's really cool to be involved in that trade. And then when you think about how it all went down, I think it was the perfect segue into building a great storyline because me, Cole, we lived in Currituck. We were at the Gravedigger shop every single day working, going to the diner together with all the guys. It was really cool to be able to tell that story. And then the same goes for Jared and Colton. They represent Gravedigger or Max D, and it was something that we thought was right. So, for us to be able to push forward and ultimately make that trade, I think it was the best thing for all of us.
I think it worked out great. You made great do your first year winning a World Finals Racing Championship. We will talk about that next, as well as explore Morgan's career now with Team Penske on the NASCAR circuit. Stick around. More Inside Monster Jam powered by Lucas Oil is coming up. Welcome back to Inside Monster Jam, powered by Lucas Oil. I'm Scott Jordan. I'm joined this week on the Great Clips Hotline by my former broadcast partner and driver, Morgan Kane. Morgan, let's talk about your win in 2016. You go all the way to the top of the mountain. You win the World Finals Racing Championship. Your name is now forever etched into Monster Jam history. How was that moment for you to go into the Gravedigger, be a part of that Anderson team, and walk away with a world championship?
Well, I always knew that I had the potential. I mean, selfishly, I knew I could step up to the highest plate and really just deliver at that level. I knew that, with the support that we had with the team that year, it was great. The amount of seat time that we had, specifically coming from 2015, more Monster Jam, then transitioning into 2016 Triple Threat Series. I mean, we were getting a ton of seat time in the truck, so I felt really comfortable. I knew that Las Vegas was always basically a no lift race. Like if you lift, you lose. And with the racing background, you watch video after video after video, and you see how people enter into the chicane. It was always, hey, let's cut that corner. It would put you way too deep into the chicane. So I actually changed the apex when I looked at practice, and I'm like, okay, how can I figure out a way to line up differently in the box than everybody else, get out as fast as I can, but never lift off the throttle. So I made a small adjustment in the box, was able to make an easier turn to come on the inside of the chicane, and it just set me up for a straight shot. So that is really something that I took into qualifying. I think I was maybe second fastest qualifier, and it allowed me to set it really well in the bracket, and I was able to continue to knock through these each round, and I had lane choice. So just being comfortable in the truck was a big thing. But the confidence that you have when you go to the World Finals with Team Gravedigger, it's something that fans in the stands, they depend on you to. I mean, they buy all these tickets and they say, hey, look, I'm here to come see Gravedigger and I want to watch them deliver. So for me, I knew that was something I was like, look, I got to deliver here. And in the semifinals, batteries were dead. We had 3 or 4 different mechanics coming over. Some were not even a part of Team Gravedigger, and had to do jump box for the final round. So they tested me back in the pits. I came up and took off, and the rest is history.
You delivered for the Gravedigger fans that year for sure. You go on to have a few more successful years in Gravedigger. The pandemic happens. We come back to Monster Jam. Morgan Kane is nowhere to be found inside a truck, but you do start transitioning into more of an announcer role, which you, as I mentioned, had experience on television doing. You and I called the All-Star Challenge together in Vegas for the international pay-per-view as well as live. What has that transition for you been like to come in and do these broadcasts as an announcer?
Well, transition, I mean, you think about, everything that happened in 2020 with everyone. I mean, it was a tough transition for a lot of people, my family included. And the opportunity to stay involved was something I wanted to continue to use. I mean, 10 years in the industry is something that you just can't turn around and throw away. I think that not only do you want to continue as a great person, but you also have a lot of fans and all over the world that are depending on you. I mean, there's 10-year-olds, 5-year-olds, 2-year-olds that look up to you as a role model. And, you have to look past that and you have to say, okay, what's the biggest picture for me? How do I support my family? How do I continue to be a great person and a great role model? And announcing was something that I was like, yeah, this would be cool. I mean, I have a communications degree. I love to talk to people. So I figured announcing might be right up in my wheelhouse where I could have some fun with it. And, it turns out from live broadcasting is a lot harder than doing it in the booth.
Yeah,
But
that's true. Yeah.
it was a lot of fun. I mean, I think that every time you go to a live event and even just recording a podcast or anything that we're doing, I mean, it's a learning curve every single time you're on camera. So for me, I learned a lot from not only you, but all the other hosts and, Scott Douglas. I mean, everybody that was behind us in that transition. It makes me more confident every time I get on the microphone.
And you certainly bring an incredible insight to it. And I've told so many people this. You elevated me to a different level I didn't know I had because you're so smart about this. And I always have to feel like I need to be smarter than you, or just as smart as you, because of all the knowledge that you possess. So I appreciate that, and the way that you were able to elevate my game. And I could not have thought of a better pair of drivers to be with than you and Bryce in my first year. So I owe you a lot of that. And I'll stop kissing your butt right now.
It's a team. It's a team effort.
It was a team effort.
Scott.
That's right. Let's move on right now to what you're doing here. I saw on Instagram you were Talladega, your new career with Team Penske. Talk a little bit about what you're doing there.
Yeah, it's been a great transition for me. I mean, I think that me and my family, first off, we're based in Mooresville, North Carolina, which is just north of Charlotte. My in-laws live here in Charlotte, so it was kind of a no-brainer when I had that offer. We were currently living in Richmond, Virginia at the time. Applied for a position here, wanted to get back involved in racing. At the time I was working for CarMax at their home office in Richmond and loved it. I mean, it was, you always look for opportunities with great companies that, help support you as a person, take care of their employees, that type of stuff. And CarMax was that for me after the pandemic. So being able to be home on the weekends was great with the kids, but I knew that I wanted to get back involved in racing. So, came across the application, knew a couple people here at Team Penske, and it was really, really cool to be able to have the opportunity to onboard here. And now I'm, traveling to most races, not only on the NASCAR side, but IndyCar, sports car. We're probably one of the biggest and most successful teams in racing. So it's really cool to be able to be a part of the team.
I know you, like me, are a huge family man. You've talked about that before. So how important was that for you? Because you're still traveling, as you mentioned, but to be able to be a little bit closer to home and to kind of limit that, how important was that for you to have this new career where you can still be home as a dad and a husband to your family, but also be able to be a part of this racing?
Yeah, that was the most important. I think that for me, I've always looked at being a role model is really important to me. But, also being a role model for my kids. I want to be the best dad I can be. I think that, with my life focus now is to continue to be able to provide the best opportunities for my kids and my family. So that was something that I took really hard, where I needed to figure out a way to still showcase, hey, hard work every day pays off. And, things just don't get handed to you. So for me, I'm like, let me work from the bottom and figure out how to make this happen. And I still travel a lot, but with the travel now, it's basically race day only. So I'll fly in on Sunday. So for example, Talladega flew in. It was a great weekend for us, with Ryan Blaney still being in the playoffs. It was a must win for us. So it was really cool that we had the opportunity to put it in victory lane. And
Well, they have to know there at Penske that they're sitting on a former world champion. Is there ever talk of maybe you getting behind the wheel of a NASCAR?
No, that's way outside of my element there. I always tell them, because people joke about it all the time. They're like, you can drive? I'm like, no, I can crash. I'm a professional at crashing. You
Yeah.
don't want me behind the car. So it's something that for me, I really want to focus on just kind of what I'm doing right now, and that's representing sponsors. I mean, I think that for me, it's really cool to be able to be involved in the daily business. And, I think that it's exactly what I wanted to do in life. I think driving was a bonus when I was with Monster Jam, but, representing a brand, representing a number of different partners, and just trying to provide the best experience possible for not only the fans, but employees that come to the track, anything like that. So that's really my goal. But it's also a bonus that, I'm still in racing.
Well, I love that you're still a part of the sport in any way possible. Coming up next, your fan questions will be asked to Morgan Kane, including will he ever return behind the wheel of a Monster Jam truck? Get his answer next on Inside Monster Jam, powered by Lucas Oil. Welcome back to Inside Monster Jam, powered by Lucas Oil. I'm joined this week on the Great Clips Hotline by Morgan Kane. It's time for some of your questions. You can get involved in the conversation each and every week by following me on Instagram at ScottJordanMJSX. So, Morgan, a lot of fan questions this week. Most of them range in, is Morgan ever going to come back behind the wheel of Monster Jam? I do want to highlight one specific one. Alan M91 specifically asked if your approach to drive Max D following Tom's final season, would that be of interest to you? But let's open that up for a generalization. I know you have the itch. I saw it on Instagram this weekend. Will we ever see you driving in Monster Jam again?
I'm never going to say no. I think that, for me, my main focus right now is obviously in the career that I'm in, being able to help live a great life at my house and just make sure that my kids are just following me, because I think that that's something that when you look at being a role model, you want your kids to understand like what you do every single day. If I'm, leaving and traveling for Monster Jam, then that's kind of tough, specifically because you're gone for a long time. But, for me, the passion is still there. You never lose it. It's like riding a bike. I feel like if somebody was to ask me to jump behind the wheel of a Monster Jam truck tomorrow, I could still put on a 9.5 freestyle. So it's not a problem here. Obviously, I'm busy 38 weeks out of the year now with NASCAR and IndyCar and sports cars. So, but if there's that opportunity, I won't say no.
Well, I think we just covered about 99% of the fan questions. That's all anybody wants to know. When are we going to see you? You are missed dearly in the sport. We're happy to have you as an announcer, but obviously one day the legend of Morgan Kane on the track would be great, man. Absolute pleasure to catch up with you, and I look forward to seeing you down the road, my friend.
Absolutely. Thanks, Scott. It's great to see you.
You got it. That's all the time we have. I'll see you right here next week on Inside Monster Jam, powered by Lucas Oil.